All right, let's go out to Liz in Mobile, Alabama. Hey, Liz, what's going on?
Hey, Dr. Delony, thanks for speaking with me.
Thank you so much for giving me a shout. Everybody doing well?
Yeah, as best we can.
Best we can. Okay, fill me in. So what's going on?
Okay, so I'm a recently single mother of 5.
How recently?
It's been a couple of weeks, and we're kind of, always between a rock and a hard place, it seems. This is a long-term domestic violence relationship.
Ah, man, I'm sorry.
We were never married. We do have all of these children in common. They're all ours.
Okay.
But it's come down to an ultimatum situation where we've separated and gotten back together multiple times before.
Sure.
Sometimes in the midst of physical violence, sometimes not. But I feel more and more that I'm at my breaking point with the psychological turmoil, and also the logistics of now having to, provide 4 or 5 young children after having, for the most part, been a stay-at-home mother for, over 15 years.
So you've been with the same person for 15 years. Y'all have 5 kids. Been physically abusive this whole time. And you have had moments where you stood up tall and walked out, and you circled back and you circled back and you circled back. And now you're worried about the psychological impact. What was it about the physical impact, the physical abuse, that was okay for you?
Not so much that it was okay. I think it certainly came back to a self-esteem issue and difficulty in childhood, and having, really realizing that worth, that I don't deserve this, and recently kind of connecting to community for the first time in many years, and able to maintain friendships, and being exposed to other women or other families that are experiencing, similar things. And I was able to get angry for them, and then able to realize, well, you know what? I don't deserve this either.
No, you absolutely don't. And your kids can't be around that. Right?
Right. Yeah. And I realized
because ultimately that
more.
becomes the stamp, that becomes the imprint, that becomes the picture of what a normal relationship is, because it's the only one they know. Right?
Right. And I realized that more and more, especially with my older children, the mimicking of behaviors, the learned behaviors, and the way that they interact. And, it set off red flag after red flag in my mind, like, I know this.
Yeah.
I know this, and I can't allow this to perpetuate. But on the other hand, being, essentially a dependent for so long, working out logistically how to care for a family on my own, that's ultimately what has brought us back, is that I've exhausted every resource, tried to do everything possible.
And so I want to pause there, and I've heard this over and over, and it's probably one of the most tragic untold stories in our culture, which is everyone knows the evils of physical and psychological abuse, relationship abuse. We all know, right? Even the people experiencing it, the people who have never seen it know that's not right. The other side of that is, I've heard over and over, especially by women experiencing physical violence with children, who will say, yeah, but I got to eat, right?
Yeah.
And there's nowhere to go. And so there is this terrifying sense of being trapped, right?
Yeah, it's the lesser of the two evils situation. Well, okay, are they going to be happy and safe and healthy, but they may not have a roof over their heads because, what else could we do? This is the one thing, the one hold that he may have on us ultimately, is that financial support, but only if you're here with me.
Right. That's right. And it becomes the demon you know and the demon you don't know. And I just want to thank you for being brave and vulnerable there. I know that there are so many folks who will never experience the hell that you've experienced, but it's real easy to Monday morning quarterback that. If that ever happened to me, I would just, you don't know, right? Because it's terrifying if you've been to stay at home. So how come you never married this guy?
It was
Besides the obvious, right?
It was a dream of mine for so long. What girl doesn't want that? That fairy tale wedding, and to marry the man of your dreams, and to have a healthy, happy family with children and all the things.
So who told you weren't worth that? Who told you you weren't worth that?
I don't know that anyone necessarily expressed that or made me feel that way, but when, in the beginning, it started off as we were college students and with an unplanned pregnancy, and then it was just kind of put off and put off and put off. He had a lot of excuses.
Yeah, but somebody gave you a picture of a woman's worth at some point. Where does that come from?
I don't know if it's so much a woman's worth or my worth specifically, but growing up, I always felt less than. There was something innately wrong with me. My father worked, quite a bit, was wonderful, supported the family, but he, worked a 9 to 5 and sometimes more, and my mother was not emotionally present.
Okay.
So when I started presenting as depressed as an adolescent, it was a problem. And it was something we had to keep quiet and nobody could know about. It was difficult for me to find support because of kind of the keeping up with the Joneses dynamic in our family.
So the way you felt and the struggles that were going on and the hell you were living through was something that you needed to figure out how to keep a lid on because we have other stuff to do.
Yeah.
And then you end up with an unplanned pregnancy, and the way you feel about things and the way you want to do things and the fears and terror that you experience, that's something you need to put a lid on because we got stuff to do, right?
Yeah, it was very much a frying pan to fire situation where, I finally found somebody that seemed enamored and infatuated and thought I was wonderful and I felt special and loved for maybe the first time.
Yeah.
And then when I realized what I'd gotten myself into and what was happening, it was too late.
It was too late, but you had 5 kids with him. Mm-hmm. That's a lot. So after child 2, after child 3, tell me what you're thinking as you're walking this road.
This is something very, probably one of the hardest struggles that I deal with internally because, people are cute and they like to say, oh, are they all yours? You know what causes that, don't you?
Yes.
But nobody sees through, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Through all the facets of an abusive relationship or a coercive or manipulative relationship where it's difficult to talk about things like, I know we're not actually married, but marital rape or things where you feel like saying no is not an option, or maybe it will keep the peace, or maybe now he'll be in a better mood where it's obligation.
Yeah.
I didn't have the voice nor the ability. He's much stronger than I am. Hearing these comments, and to no fault of these people who think they're being, funny or cute. We have a television now. Yeah, I took care of it. Thank you. Yeah. They're mine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they don't know the trauma on the other side of it, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And so what was the final straw that you said, enough is enough is enough?
We've always kind of lived in a check-to-check situation. He runs his own business. So we've never, we've always struggled. We've always, we owned a home briefly and then moved, and we've rented for so long. And the kids are always, we've moved many times. The kids are always very unstable. They say things like, at our next house or this or that, or are we going to move soon because I really don't want to leave my friends or this or that. Really, when I realized how deep I have very little control over finances, if any. And when I realized that he was kind of perpetually making these excuses, keeping us in the situation we were going without because of selfishness, things like this, and that in combination with the name calling, the criticizing, just the anger and the yelling, the kids, I noticed that they would disappear, go to hide, kind of slowly slink away. And I said, we can't do this.
Yeah.
I can't. He actually was the one that gave me an ultimatum, unless you get your stuff together and start taking care of me like is your job to do it, to make me happy, I'm not moving again with you. And I said, okay, so this is the first time we've ever been on the same page. And that's fine. So go ahead. And he ultimately did, decided he wasn't going to fulfill his financial obligations as far as basic living expenses and let the chips fall where they may, which ended up in us having to leave our home. And so he was able to take care of his end and get his own home for the family, which the family has never lived in. And we stay for the last couple of weeks, we've been in a pop-up camper in a friend's backyard, and I'm trying to scramble and figure out what I can.
Yeah.
But there's always that looming. If things get bad enough, we may have to go back and figure and regroup. And I don't want to go there again.
Yeah. So do you have any sort of church community, friend community that will give your kids a house for 2 months, 3 months? Or has there been any sort of connection with the women's shelter there in your local area that will take everybody in? Y'all can't stay in a backyard pop-up camper, not 5 kids.
I'm well acquainted with women's shelters in our area. I've stayed there once for quite some time, a couple of years ago, and ultimately, this is what's unfortunate is although they have as many resources as they do what they can. They help so many families and women. I saw so many people come in and out. Ultimately, what they can do is limited, especially for families of this size with no financial savings or no job prospects. It's just starting everyone from square one. And sometimes it's just, most of the time, maybe all of the time, it's just not possible, is what I've found.
So what about your friends and community? Or even if you have to, say 3 of them go to this house for a while and 2 go to this house, you got to get those kids under a roof. That's where they're safe. And I know you know that. I'm not trying to pile on. I'm trying to encourage, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I it breaks my heart to think about having to separate them. That's certainly probably one of my other hang-ups is,
So
why didn't...
Think of it this way. What you are, and it makes so much sense, and I can't think of a more pure heart here. So I'm walking alongside you, okay? This isn't a finger-wagging thing. This is just me walking alongside. I understand. Is you're trying the best you can to keep the picture of a family that you have had in your head since you were a little bitty kid intact. And that is on fire, right? And so,
yeah, absolutely.
There comes moments of, I like walking hand in hand with my 2 kids and my wife, but if the house is on fire, everybody's got to get out in the yard, and I've got to run into the house and get as much stuff out into the front yard as possible, right? Because it's an emergency.
Yeah.
And of course, nobody's going to separate your family long term. No chance, no how, no way. Not under Liz's watch, right? That's not the kind of mom you're going to be, right?
Right. Yeah.
But in an effort to hold this picture together so tightly, because there's so little in your world you can control, right? because you've got an abusive, evil person who has created a universe for you where you've got nothing, right? And so in an effort to control, you hold on to this picture really tight. And suddenly you find yourself in a camper in a backyard with 5 little kids trying to finish out a school year on the back end of a pandemic. And it's that picture's cracking, and you're just going to hold tighter and tighter and tighter, right? So there comes moments when it's okay to exhale and say, Billy and Tommy, y'all are going to go stay with the Smiths, and I'm going to see you every single day. And the other 3, y'all are going to go stay with so-and-so, and I'm going to stay with y'all too. And because things are on fire, and I'm going to have to work like crazy to find me a job of some sort. You are going to have to start from square one, and this is hard, and it's awful, and it's wrong. And it's easy for me to say you need to get the authorities involved. That's my recommendation, but I also know that makes you even less safe, right? And when somebody's when somebody's got their own
difficult.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. It is just so difficult because we have been here before where, we do have a church community. It is, a small congregation, but they were able to bless us several years ago, and we were able to find our own home, and we did well, not well, but we got by for several months, almost a year. And I found then that even working full-time and then some, and taking advantage of subsidized child care for my youngest ones and, public school for the rest and daycare, I worked as much as I possibly could, had a couple of side hustles even, and even so at the end of the month, there were more, at the end of the money, we still had bills.
Yeah, exactly.
I was taking a little bit from savings every month, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, till eventually it was just gone.
Yeah.
And he was able to come in like
save the day,
the savior that is his personality type. I have this house, and we can be a family.
Yeah.
And I felt like I did not have another option.
Have you sat down
especially now, post-pandemic, when housing prices are through the roof, almost doubled what they were a year ago in this area.
Yeah.
It seems just hopeless. Like, I am crazy to be thinking that I can do this.
You're not. Have you sat down with the police and an attorney to get child support so that money that he needs to be paying comes without him?
I have. It's very convoluted. And when I say I've exhausted every resource, I'm not being flippant. I really mean over the past several years. Like I said, when you own a business, unfortunately, a lot of it is off the books. A lot of it's cash. Taxes are not an accurate representation by a long shot of income. Child support has been a joke.
And those are the things that you have to lean on.
Oh yeah. I understand if it was accurate, I feel like we could maybe just slide under, just make it, but it's just, I'm not even sure how to go about.
It's a matter of,
for example, for 5 kids, a monthly payment of $400 is laughable.
Yeah.
But that's where we're at.
Exactly. That's where getting with an attorney who will do a forensic accounting of his resources, right? That's where you may consider taking all 5 kids and moving in with a sister who's in Colorado or somewhere across the country. That's where you pick up and you start looking at where are places where women in your situation are taken care of better than they are in your local community. And when I'm talking about stepping out and looking and saying, I've got to rebuild this thing from the floor up, and you got to change the oil on this car while it's moving, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And so here's what I want you to do. I want you to begin to think of this as a 2 to 3 to 5 year project, not a 2-month project. And I know that sounds so flippant. It feels so overwhelming. That's where you can sit down and especially get somebody to walk alongside you who will help you build out, here's what a budget's going to look like. Hey, attorney, I need you to know that this is how my husband does business. He runs stuff under the table. It's not cash. I can point you to some of the people who pay him on how he's actually living. You can go do a forensic account. So what they'll do is they'll look at the things he actually buys, the money that flows through, not just the taxable income, and they'll come up with a full picture of what he makes. And that's how you can get in and find out or get the child support up to where it needs to be. And then what most scumbags in that situation do is they'll literally take less clients, so they'll have to pay less, right? And so it's a game of cat and mouse. The big thing here is, do you go back to school? Do you sit down with your church and say, over the next 9 months, the next year, here's where I'm going to be. Can y'all help me out? Is there a couple of folks who at your local church or your local group or wherever your mom lives or wherever your sister lives, and I'm making people up here, right, that would be willing to help out with babysitting in exchange for fill in the blank? And so you're talking about a long-term play. And there is unfortunately there's no happy ending of this tomorrow or a month from now or 3 months from now. What you do know is what happens when you go back, right?
Right. And on the one side, I completely understand that there's no quick fix. It's going to be a lifelong healing for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a constant process, but we're going to move towards getting better. Yeah. And I have, on the other hand, been in the alternative for over a decade, so I know.
Yeah, exactly.
I know it's time, and it's a process.
Right.
I think the one thing that holds me back is, on the one hand, the crippling anxiety,
right.
And it's, the overwhelming, the sheer overwhelmingness of it, of all of the things, not only figuring out the living situation, the money, the guilt over asking for so many things from so many people. I need help here and help there, but also managing the needs of, children that aren't school age yet. The ones that are, that want to do, why can't I do sports? Why can't I go to a friend's house? Yeah. I need help with my homework. But the fear of not being there because I'm going to have to work so hard.
Yeah.
In addition, to being mother to all of them.
So listen,
and not have me resent me and say, well, things were better with Dad.
And that's where I want you to always be leaning towards a long game you're playing here. Okay? Here's why. There will come a moment when your kids will turn back and you will become the maternal figure that changed the trajectory of this family. You. And there will come a season when your kids will turn and look at the sacrifices you made and the unbearably guilt-ridden conversations you had to have, or that you asked somebody to have on your behalf, that allowed them to be where they are now. And that's why I need you. The only thing I'm going to ask of you, number one, is don't go back. Ask furiously. Do what you've got to do. To ask furiously for help, reach out to resources. Just start banging a gong on the street. Okay? And I want you to call your church's bluff. And if they say who they say they are, then they should rally around you. It helps for you to have some very clear needs. One of those needs, for instance, is I need somebody to go ask the local Little League if they have a scholarship program for kids and I guarantee you somebody in your church who doesn't have a lot of money but loves a good deal will get on the phone and make sure that your kids are playing Little League this summer. And somebody who needs some, I will be the best, I'll make cookies, I will do whatever. I don't have money to pay kids for babysitting, but I will write the best letters of recommendation. I will fill in the blank because you've got so much value to offer. What you've been navigating, you would be a Thunderdome lawyer, right? You would be an incredible Navy SEAL. I hung out with Jocko this past week. You can stand next to him, okay? You are a powerful, strong woman. The person who's got to believe that is you, and I want the people, and you've got to have some space to breathe so you can even see it, right? And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a couple of things for you. First thing is, for the listeners who don't know, I work here at Ramsey Solutions. I'm going to give you a year of Ramsey Plus. Here's why that's important. People are going to ask, like, that's got all the Financial Peace University. It's a budgeting thing. And I know you're saying, I don't have any money to even budget. I get that. When things feel super overwhelming, it feels like everything's raining and I can't figure out what thing to do next.
Which bucket to put where?
That's exactly right. And the roof is caving in. Yeah. Oh, and the front door's on fire, right? What this does is it breaks down chaos into a step-by-step plan, particularly with your money. But more importantly than that, it gives you a plan for intentionality for your whole life. So at the same time you're playing a 5-year game, you're also playing a minute-by-minute game. And Liz, it's exhausting. And so I want you to reach out to folks in your church and say, I need a day. I need 2 hours a week where I can just breathe. I need fill in the blank. I need fill in the blank. This will help you break down your needs step by step by step. I'm going to send you a copy of my book, Redefining Anxiety. For all this, we're going to send it to you for free. And I want you to go back to it and go back to it. Here's the thing. Your crippling anxiety means your brain is working great. It means everything is firing on all cylinders. Your body's been telling you for years you're not safe. And you know this, right?
Yeah.
Where it gets hard is you haven't valued yourself. And now suddenly you're starting to realize my kids aren't safe and you value them, right? And that makes all of this.
My world.
Exactly. And so you've got some really hard choices on the horizon. What I want to tell you is if your kids are playing Little League that somebody else helped you get for free while you're out going back to school, or you're out working and then going back to school, and somebody else is helping tuck your kids in at night, and they are just a saint, and you're thinking, I can never pay you, I can never repay you, I can never repay you. Or there's 2 grandmothers at your church who are rotating, or 2 granddads who are rotating, helping out because they've set themselves up in their world where this is the kind of joy they get to spread into the world. You're going to have to open your hands and accept it. And for the first time in your life, you're going to have to understand that you're worth that type of support. You didn't get it from your family. You didn't get it from this loser that you've been with for 15 years. And at some point, you have to look in the mirror and say, on behalf of my kids, I've got to understand that I got value. Even if for a while you have to fake it and pretend you have value so you can teach your kids what value looks like, right? Because they're looking to you and say, what does value look like? Right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it means dropping your shoulders and saying, hey, I need help. And you need a lot, Liz, right? You need a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And then I want you to find somebody in your community that's going to be a lawyer that's going to help you go to war. And I tell you, I know lawyers, they live for these moments. Oh, these make them so happy. They sit there and work on contracts and nonsense day after day, punching that 6-minute clock over and over. And then a woman who's been beat down and abused and has 5 kids because her husband is evil and needs some help, they start licking their chops on this one, right? That support and that help is there. It's going to start with you getting really, really clear about tiny, bite-sized chunks, tiny bite-sized steps you can take day after day after day. Today, I want you to call somebody that will sit down and help you make a plan for finding housing for your kids. I want you to stay on the line. We're going to get you these financial resources, these intentionality resources, and they have everything in this. It's got the budgeting stuff, but it also has, where do I buy the cheapest fill in the blank? How do I make a deal on this deal? What happens when my car goes out? It's got a step-by-step plan for all these different processes, and it will teach you how to get on a budget, teach you how to be intentional, right? I want you to sit down with somebody today and help them help you make a plan for your kids. They got to be under a roof. They got to have showers. You got to have plumbing. You can't be in a pop-up camper with 5 children. I can't be with never mind. You're just a stud. You're incredible. And you have value. You've got worth. And I want you to know you got a whole country of people rallied around you. We need to know what you need, okay? And if you live in this area, Mobile, Alabama, I want you, and somebody comes knocking on your door, you're going to open it and you're going to welcome people in, because that's what we do. That's where we're at as a country. We've got to start welcoming people in. And if you're listening to this and you're an abusive person and you lord over people with violence, you lord over people with fix my house. You lord over people with rape and power. Today you're done. You're done. Enough. Go with the help you need. Stop. It's generational. You're not that important. Stop. No, actually, you know what? You are that important. We need no more of it. It's enough. Liz, thank you for being brave. Call anytime you need something, and we'll be here the best we can help you with. And I want you to put your church on notice. I want you to put your community on notice that Liz needs some support. And then you're going to be about changing this thing from the inside out. And you're going to look up in 5 years and 10 years, and you will have a group of kids, 5 kids that are growing up understanding their mom is a rock star. There is a light at the end of this tunnel. It's going to be a long walk, but there's a light there, and you can't do it alone. Thank you so much for your call, Liz.